What was your biggest, oh hell no, moment where you saw a situation as very creepy or scary? Part 1. Please like and subscribe to support this channel. I've posted this before, but it definitely fits here. In the early 2000s I worked as a forestry technician doing lot surveying and tree marking for timber companies in remote Northern California. At the time, there was a major offensive by the federal government against cartel-run marijuana grow operations in the area. These areas were so remote that growers would pack in during the winter and set up their operation for the year with the expectation of never seeing anyone from the outside besides occasional support deliveries. Given the nature of my job, essentially a reconnaissance scout with a paint can, our company was visited by a group of feds who asked for our help in locating the grow operations. We were instructed on what to look for and what to do should we encounter suspicious activity in remote areas, basically mark it on the map and run the other way, and what to be extra careful of, booby traps. The typical booby trap array at a grow site was described as follows: outer perimeter, scare, alert devices. These were noisemakers set up like a rudimentary alarm system. I was told that mouse traps with shotgun shells and tripwires were common. The trap's bail would snap onto a pin setting off the shell and alerting your neighborhood cartel sentry, while costing the victim at least his underwear. Second perimeter, physical deterrence. There was a creative list, but the one that I remember most was high-test fishing line strung with large treble hooks at face, neck level, concealed in the thick brush. I'll let that one sink in. Inner perimeter, armed workers. Something about the occasional sniper nest. With all that as context, we went on our merry way that summer without much incident. A few busts in neighboring areas made the news, the casual 1,000 plants or so, but that was typical for the time. Then, one morning, I found myself staring at black irrigation pipe beneath my feet, on the side of a mountain, up a canyon, miles from the truck, which was miles from anything that resembled a paved road. As my awareness heightened, I realized that the manzanita brush looked unusual. Taking it all in, I start to understand what's going on. The clever growers have hollowed out the manzanita, essentially cutting the understory branches and leaving a canopy. I would come to find later that this was to hide the field of plants from aerial surveillance. As I marveled at the ingenuity, the gravity of my situation started to take shape. I was in the heart of the operation, not on the perimeter. Silently screaming on the inside, I quietly made my way out of the area over what felt like an eternity, all the while visions of my head being shot off the top of my neck at any moment playing on repeat. The feds raised the area later that summer and rounded up some pretty beat-looking workers. According to the story told to us on a second visit from the feds, the workers were asking for leniency as they hadn't killed anyone even though they had multiple opportunities to do so with outsiders being lined up in their gun sights. Things have since calmed down quite a bit up there, it seems. Not my worst scare, but still a good one. I was maybe 11 or 12 and was over at a sleepover with 4 other girls. It wasn't a great neighborhood, and we were alone in her basement with most of the lights off when someone started throwing pebbles at her back door. It continued for a few minutes, then stopped, so after being freaked out, we went back to doing preteen girl things. 20 minutes go by, and it starts again. So, because we're scared little girls with no brains, we turn off everything and hide behind the couch. Pretty soon the phone starts ringing, and we make the girl that invited us go answer it. She started flipping out saying this raspy voice was telling her he can see us, telling her to lock the doors, or else, and that we're all about to die. She runs upstairs and wakes her parents up, and they call the police. They come to the townhouse, and find these 2 little 13-year-old shitheads who saw us, and decided to throw rocks from a ditch behind her house. Ha ha ha. I peed myself. I grew up in eastern Washington, which is full of scrub desert, which means you have to deal with rattlesnakes. I was 8 or so, and at my grandparents', and everyone went down to the lake to swim. For some reason, I stayed behind for a while, and decided I would join them later. So I'm walking down this dirt road, and I hear a rattle in front of me. I'm like, is it worth it to risk walking by a rattlesnake? I decided nope and start walking back up the road. 10 feet later, I hear a rattle in front of me _again_. So, here I am, young kid, rattlesnakes in front and behind. I walked back and forth a few times hoping that this time there wouldn't be a rattle, but there always was. I'm freaking out, nearly crying. I shout a few times but no one's near enough to help me, and I'm just boxed in between these 2 rattles. Eventually, I pumped myself up and just book it back up the road to my grandparents, and spend the rest of the day shaking and playing solitaire. Here's the thing. It was probably just bugs. There are bugs that make the same damn sound as rattlesnakes to scare off predators, and they're way more common than actual rattlers. I even knew that at the time, and kept telling myself that, but when you're 8 and alone and in hidden murder animal territory, logic is a cold comfort. There was this guy called the Butcher on my street growing up. They called him that cause he was a butcher. Family had at least a screw loose though. I was semi-friends with his oldest kid. On Halloween I go up to his house, I was like 11 or 12. They had these large spear-looking things up on each post of their little wood fence that ran up the side of the driveway. On the top of each was what looked like pig and cow heads, with blood dripping down the spikes. I got up there, said, "Hey man, those things look so real." To the son, and he responded, "They are. Wanna come in the garage and I'll show you all the other cool dead stuff we got." I never trick or treated there again. I'm glad it was the kid who said it though. If the big creepy dad had, I probably could have cried or shit myself right there. Around 3 years ago my girlfriend was house sitting for a family friend of my parents. Long story short, it was the summer of her junior year in college and she had found a good internship near me, so she lived there while the family traveled all summer long. To set the background, this house is in the rural parts of North Carolina, surrounded by woods on all sides, and the driveway takes about 5 to 6 minutes to drive down on average. Her bedroom she stayed in was directly facing the driveway and out to the woods. The second week she was staying there I drop her off maybe around 1 a.m. after we have spent all day up in the mountains hiking and spending time with friends. We say our goodbyes, she closes and locks the door, and I walk back to my car. Not even 10 seconds after I reach my car I get this awful feeling that something is wrong, and right after that I hear my girlfriend scream out the most terrifying scream I have ever heard. I rush back to the door but it is still locked. I try all of the windows and other doors. This house is 3 stories and around 5,000 square feet. Finally one of the bathroom windows on the basement floor is unlocked, so I climb inside. I rush upstairs to where she is, and right then I see a tall hooded figure bolt out of the room and jump through the front bay window. In her bedroom, I start to chase but they stand up and run into the woods, so I stopped running after because I did not know if they were alone. We call the police and they come out and search the outer perimeter, but that is it. After it is all said and done I ask my girlfriend what happened. She said that she went into the room she was staying in and had her back turned to the door. As she was setting her stuff down she hears footsteps and then a voice say, "Finally we are all alone." TLDR girlfriend stays alone, house sitting a mansion deep in the woods. Disturbed individual waited for her to get home and lock up to approach her, and said, "Finally we are all alone." I was at my friend's brother's wedding one evening. They're Muslim so no drinking, but my friend and another fiend headed to the hotel bar for drinks and had a couple too many. Didn't want to drive home, and was a little too poor to taxi it. I had brought my stupid expensive Pro DSLR to take some wedding shots, which turned out great. Called a friend of mine who lived maybe 10 minutes away, and asked if I could stay the night, to which he agreed. Not being from that part of town, I hadn't realized how sketchy it was. I get halfway there and some drunk hobos start yelling at me to take their picture. So I oblige to placate them. Keep walking. I see some other dude walking in front of me, looking back over his shoulder at my camera. He disappears into an construction area. Nope. I quickly cross the street and keep walking. I look over and he was waiting to pounce on me. Just waked fast, and a few cops drove by, but could have been bad. Don't complain about Uber safety. It's a lot safer and insured compared to walking. My family used to rent this guest house owned by an old man in his 60s or so, and he lived right next to us. I was 13 and masturbated late one night in my room, curtains slightly open, which I honestly didn't think about at the time, and the very next morning he was staring at me smiling and said, "You stay up late, don't you?" in a suggestive tone. Maybe it was nothing, but I'm pretty sure he was peeping on me. Plus, my dad got us to move out really quickly, and his reasoning was that he was worried about being around, above. Quote, "This is my mom's story, but mama doesn't do the Reddit and it's too good, freaky. A story not to tell." This is early 90s. My parents are renting a small house in a smaller town in rural central Maine. There is a massive blizzard going on, like, only emergency vehicles allowed on the roads kind of blizzard. So my family is hunkered down, and my mom has just put my sister and I to bed for the night. We were rather young. As my mom is leaving our room and walking back to the front of the house, she hears my dad talking to someone. As she gets into the kitchen, where the main door is, she sees my dad standing in the open doorway talking to a stranger. Stranger is a nondescript dude who is somewhat bundled, enough to hide features but not the right clothes for a blizzard. My mom says she remembers him wearing sneakers, which was very odd considering the weather. The man is spinning some odd story about needing to get to the hospital to see his uncle, and that he doesn't have a vehicle and a friend would only bring him this far. Note: the nearest hospital is at least 30 minutes away in completely perfect weather. Also, there is no sign of a friend or a friend's car anywhere. My dad doesn't say anything, he just starts reaching down to put his boots on. My mom asks what he is doing. He doesn't reply, just keeps on putting boots and shit on. My mom asks him what the fuck he thinks he's doing. Still no response. So she comes up and around to stand in front of him, and thereby blocking the stranger. She has gone into mama bear protection mode at this point, and asks him again what the fuck does he think he is doing giving a strange rando a ride in an all-out blizzard to the hospital to visit his uncle? My dad stops and looks at her in a super confused way, like he doesn't understand what the situation is at all. My mom turns around, tells the stranger they are sorry but they can't give him a ride. She shuts the door in his face. My dad tries to open the door and says we should at least invite the man in. At this point, my mom slams the door shut and locks it. Naturally, she immediately walks to the closest window and looks out to see what stranger is doing. He's gone. We had a pretty lengthy driveway and he's just gone. Also, there were no tracks in the snow, either from him coming or going. My dad is still confused and doesn't understand why my mom sent the stranger away. Now my father is a guy who has no problem telling people to fuck off, and also is not the type of guy to leave his wife alone with 2 young kids in the middle of a blizzard in rural Maine. He is also definitely not the guy to invite a stranger into his house where his young children are. Later on in the evening, my dad's recollection of the event seemed vague and he tried to disagree with my mom about him being willing to give the guy a ride or inviting him in. So strange. To this day my mom gets all freaked thinking about it. When I was in 4th grade, my family went on a vacation to Bermuda and we went on a snorkeling adventure outside the hotel we were staying at. The first 15 minutes were wild. I got to see reefs and all these awesome sea creatures and whatnot, but then I get a little closer to the rocks to have a better view. Soon after, this giant fucking moray eel slithers its head out. I froze in fear. I was a tiny kid then, and at the time this thing was massive, staring me down with its mouth open and teeth out. It seemed like forever. Finally, I had enough sense to slowly work my way backwards, and once I felt safe I swam as fast as I could to shore. In hindsight, it's cool to be able to say I was that close to a moray eel, but I'm surprised I didn't shit myself then and there because I was terrified. I was on a road trip with my dad, a friend of my dad's who we'll call Dick, and my twin brother. We stayed with a family friend, who I'll call Kay, for a couple nights. Dick's a funny guy with good stories, so twin bro and I were talking to him the whole time we were driving to Kay's house. When we got there, Dad and Kay went downstairs to the den to watch TV. Twin bro used the restroom, and that left Dick and I alone in the hallway together. Dick slammed me against the wall, pinned me by my shoulder, touched my face, kissed me, and started grinding on me. He said he knew there was chemistry between us, and he could tell that I wanted him. Oh, hell, no. I was a 17-year-old girl. He was my dad's age. I just wanted to not be bored during a road trip. I spent the rest of the time clinging to twin bro. I didn't tell anyone until about 15 years later. I didn't want to cause trouble. I thought maybe I was being too forward, and maybe I deserved it. This may be sort of mild, compared to some stories on here. Years ago, I worked in a hardware store. We used to have this guy that always came in and bought things in bulk, supposedly for contract work. Anyway, he tended to single out certain female cashiers that he liked and would bring us hostess cakes for whatever reason. He always gave off this, not quite right, creepy vibe that made all of us girls nervous. So we would just say thank you and say we weren't allowed to eat at the register and just put the cake to the side. We never ate them, we always threw them out after he left. One time on Thanksgiving, he even brought some of us plates of food. Again, we left them untouched. We used to sort of half joke amongst ourselves that he probably roofied the food or did something weird to the cakes. One day, he came in and gave us our usual cakes but then said, "I don't know why I bring these for you, you never eat them." That comment certainly did nothing to dissuade our suspicions. My mom has a terrifying story. Every night as a kid it looked like the silhouette of a head was looking in her bedroom window. It happened every night, so she decided it must be a trick of the eye. It would usually just creep her out. One night she was just watching this head-shaped thing, and grew tired of not knowing what it was. So as quickly as she could she jumped up to run across the room to turn on the light. A second before she reached the lights the silhouette moved and ran away, and it never happened again. A buddy and I worked at a stereo shop when we were younger. Our boss was a shady asshole. I had worked on a car for one of our local big ballers. We had to sublet the car for other work, and I told my boss what needed to be done. Well, he didn't relay that info, and the car broke down right in front of a big club the next night. Big baller came back super heated, and my boss tried to deny any wrongdoing. A big argument ensued. I was working under the dash of a car, and my buddy comes up and says, "We gotta go." I was like, "I'm busy man, what's up?" He says, "We gotta go, now," and pulls me out of the car. I look up and see Big Baller with a gun up against my boss's head. We were both like, "Later boss," and left. About a year or so ago, when I was working a really shitty job far from home and didn't get a car yet, I'd have to take 2 buses to get there. I missed my stop because I still wasn't used to taking the buses. I was sitting on steps on the sidewalk looking at maps trying to figure out how I'm going to get to work within a decent time, and this older guy keeps hollering at me asking if I needed help. I told him I missed the bus and needed to get to work, and vaguely told him what direction I worked in. He was like, "Come on, I'll give you a ride." He had an older kidnapper-style van too, which immediately put me on edge. I'm not a very confrontational person, and oftentimes I put myself in uncomfortable situations just to avoid awkward dialogue, so I started walking towards his car as he got in. I was about to open the door when I pictured a scenario in my head of him kidnapping me, very vividly in my head. I said no thanks after all, and that I was uncomfortable. I still have no idea if he was genuinely trying to help me or was actually ill-intentioned, but on top of the area not being very safe, I just have a gut feeling it wouldn't have ended well for me. Hard to top the stories from people who've been in the armed forces, but here it goes. I went to a university in a not-so-nice area of my city. My senior year I lived off campus by a few blocks close to the edge of what most students considered the safe zone. So one night I'm walking to the other end of campus to grab drinks with friends, and when I reach the end of my block, a guy riding a bike with one hand, drinking a Four Loko, comes riding by saying, "Get off the block, someone's about to get shot." I said, "Thanks," and booked it about 30 seconds before the shooting started. Didn't stop till I was on the other side of campus. TLDR. If a guy tells you someone's gonna get shot, start running. I was driving down a 2-lane when the car in front of me approaching the light swerved a bit into the opposite lane. I look and quickly discover 3 brown bags in the middle of my lane. Unavoidable when you're quickly approaching or if the car in front of you quickly swerves. As my car goes over the bags, I immediately discover they are actually giant cinder blocks from the sounds of it against my car. My first assumption was that some high school kids were being dumb and placed them there. Being a concerned citizen and not giving it a second thought, I pulled a U-turn into the opposite lane to go throw the blocks to the side so someone didn't get hurt. As I do that, a man in all black covering his entire body and face comes out of nowhere, walks across the lane and stares into my soul. Not sure what his intentions were, but obviously not great. I was so caught off guard. My window was down and we locked eye contact for a solid 20 seconds as I slowly drove away. I proceeded to keep driving and called the cops. I looped back around after I saw a cop car and another car that actually was broken down on the side of the road. Clearly the guy was trying to trap people. I'll never know what his intentions were, but it was creepy AF. Lesson learned. So this has been, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years. I was having a pretty rough time in life and was staying at a friend's trailer that he just recently moved out of that was basically in between 2 farm fields and the woods. So at night it's pretty much pitch black and sometimes deer or other critters will make noises. No big deal. Well, one day my friend brings over a box of stuff he wants to store. While storing the stuff, he brings out this item that he bought at a local flea market. It was what looked like a handmade Model T car that was a music box. The crank on the front would wind and would play music. It was pretty unique. Anyways, he set it on the entertainment center and just left it. I didn't think twice about it. Couple of days later I'm home by myself just playing video games and chilling when all of a sudden the music car from the living room starts playing. Weird, I think to myself, but after a moment it stops and I forget about it. It's made of metal, maybe temperature change or something, set of a couple ticks in the gear, and it played. A few moments later it plays again. This time longer. I get up and go out to the living room and it's just sitting there playing. Mind you, I haven't touched this thing since my friend placed it on the entertainment center. It stops after a moment being in the living room. Creepy, I say to myself, but once again shrug it off to science or something. End the night, no more noise, and go to sleep. That weekend I get off of work super later, roughly after 1 a.m., and get home super tired and ready to crash. I hop in the shower, do my thing, and get out. As I'm walking out of the bathroom I hear it. It's just playing the same metallic tune. No way, this is just bizarre. I go out to the living room, pick it up and fidget with the crank, thinking maybe it's just really wound up still, and due to being old it hasn't finished unwinding. No luck. It looks, by all I could tell, it shouldn't be making any noise at all. I set it back down. As soon as my hand leaves the car it starts again. For no reason. I literally was trying to unwind it, I couldn't have wound it. I pick it up again, shake it like a busted you, listening for loose parts or anything. Still nothing to indicate it should be playing. At this point I am starting to do the whole paranormal weird shit. I call my friend. I ask him about the car. He says nothing out of the ordinary about it. I tell him it's literally playing without any reason to. He laughs, tells me I'm dumb, which I agreed, and got off the phone. I decide to call it a night watching some Game of Thrones. I just got the newest season and was binging it to catch up. Laying in bed watching TV, eyelids are super heavy, the music plays again, scaring me awake like a bucket of cold water. I'm shivering. The chills I'm feeling are not normal. Something is wrong. I stand up, staring at my bedroom door, listening to the music. It's the same song, but it's different too. There's no reasonable explanation to what begins next. The music stops. I take a step or two toward my bedroom door. Bang! The loudest sound I ever heard comes from outside. Bang! Bang! It's so loud I feel the vibrations in my feet. I leap backwards as far into corner opposite my door as I could. The banging isn't random, almost a rhythm. Bang! Bang! What the fuck is going on? My friend is fucking with me, I know it. I'm so mad I get the courage to run toward my bedroom door. I swing the door open, so embarrassed I'm yelling how I'm going to kick his ass. I turn on the porch light, go outside, and nothing. No noises. Nothing. I grab my flashlight from the kitchen and shine it outside. No truck, no reasonable explanation. I call my friend mad. Where are you, I ask. He is home in bed. The groggy responses made me believe him. It's 4 a.m. by this point. I hang up apologizing and go back inside. Shortly after I crash out. The very next night I'm returning home from playing cards at a friend's house. It's not very late, about 8 p.m. or so. I pull in front of the trailer and immediately stop and get out of the car, shocked at what I saw. Literally 20 plus deer standing right outside of my trailer. Buck, multiple of them, which is weird, bucks don't travel together usually. There's deers in the mix, but they don't notice me. They didn't even react to my headlights or me closing the door to the car. Scared, I open my car door and just lay on the horn. Slowly the deer recognize the noise and begin to wander off. Not running, just more wandering. I go inside and just sit on my couch wondering what in the hell I just witnessed. Later that night at about midnight or so I'm again trying to watch my Game of Thrones. The trailer is lit up like a Christmas tree. At this point sleep isn't happening. I just sit there not paying attention to the TV, just waiting. Sure enough, the music begins from nowhere. I sat frozen on my bed. Its loud clanks sent shivers down my spine, but it's not what I'm truly worried about. The music concludes with a couple of more clanks. Bang! Bang! It's happening again. This isn't real, something is fucked up. This isn't right. Bang! I have to just get into my car and go somewhere. Bang! I stand up, struggling to make myself move. I slowly move toward my bedroom door again. No confidence this time, pure unadulterated fear. Each step slowly moving me toward the door. When I get to the door, the music plays again. It's faster. It's not even music at this point, it's just clank after clank. I take a step back, just listening. What is this? I go back to the door and just listen, almost pressing my face against the door. Just as I place my ear on the door, the music stops. I pull back and just stare at my door. All of a sudden, bang! Oh my god, it's not outside anymore. Bang! Bang! It's my door. The door shakes violently with each bang. There's no lock. Oh my god, they could just come in here. I run to the door and squeeze the knob as hard as I can. Bang bang bang. It goes on for what feels like forever. Eventually it subsides. I stand up and literally push everything I have against the door. I sit there until morning. I checked around the trailer, doors locked, windows closed and intact. I'm not sure why I never called the cops. I'm not sure why who or whatever was banging at my door never tried to open it. I don't know. All I know is I took the car to my friend's house that morning, put it in his hands and told him to never bring it near me again. To this day he swears he's never had anything odd happen. I don't necessarily believe it to be something supernatural or whatever, but it scared me to the point I'll never live near a rural area again. Deer creep me out now to this day. I have a daughter now, and her mother, anytime she wants to go bargain shopping or to garage sales, I always think I'll see that metallic Model T music car just sitting on a table. It scares me even now. Back in college I dated this real pretty girl from a bad neighborhood. I played sports, wrestled, and boxed, so I knew a thing or two about self-defense. I would pick her up once or twice a week. During the day I never had any problems, but at night, people, gangbangers, were always hanging around. One time I picked her up at about 8 p.m., the sun was setting. While I was waiting for her, I decided to wipe down the outside of my new car. While I was wiping it down, two young guys, good looking but with baggy clothes, came up and started asking friendly questions, including why I was there. I told them I was waiting. They asked me to take them to the liquor store while I was waiting. I politely declined, but they became more persistent to the point of demanding. I remained polite and told them I had to go because my girl was ready. They both kind of laughed, then looked at each other. One finally said, "I don't think you understand, we are no longer asking. Let us borrow your car," and he blocked the driver door. I decided it was either give up my car and be left in a really crappy situation or man up and get the shit kicked out of me. I grabbed the guy leaning against the door and flipped him into the other guy. It gave me enough time to jump into my car and GTFO. I drove straight home. At that time my pager was going off, and when I got home I called my girl and she proceeded to cuss me out about how I hurt her cousin and he was just playing around. Needless to say, that was the last time I spoke with her. I still don't know if he was playing or not, but who the fuck plays like that? I woke up a little late for school one morning. Normally, my little sister and I would walk together. Because I got up late and saw her grabbing her shoes, I figured she was already out the door and gone by the time I got done getting ready. So I'm heading to the elementary school we would cross every morning, speed walking. It's still dark, the sun isn't even up yet. And then I hear my sister scream my name from behind me. Edit. It was here, when I heard her yell my name out of fear, from behind me, that I had the thought, oh hell no. Asterisk, I turned around really fast and saw her about 3 city blocks back, just under the last lit up street light I passed on my way, and a very tall, skinny, bald guy passing her and keep going. I yell her name back, and meet her halfway. She was pretty shaken. I was 16, she was 14. We continued to the elementary school and let them know what happened. The man had something in his hand, about the size of a hairbrush, according to sis, and asked my sister, "Hey, can I ask you something real quick?" Asterisk, to which she said, "Never ask me anything. Ever." Asterisk, and started running to me and yelled my name. He might have been harmless. He might have really been holding a hairbrush. He was wearing dark clothes, looked scary, holding something, and was approaching a 14-year-old girl he thought was alone. Scary.